Now joining us for a special edition of the Mangru One-on-One is former New York Governor and one of the key leaders of post-9/11 America, Governor George Pataki. Governor Pataki, it's an honor to have you here on the show today.
Well, thank you, Dan. Nice being with you.
Now, with 9/11 a distant memory for many and the immediacy of America's current economic crisis, is 9/11 still relevant today?
Oh, sure it is. And Dan, you know, you say it's not as current in people's minds, but we still have incidents like we had the bomber who tried to blow up the plane on Christmas Eve. We had the Times Square bomber. We have incidents on a regular basis, and I think Americans understand that we are still in a post-September 11th world. There are still Islamic terrorists out there and here who want to attack us again, and we have to continue to be very vigilant.
Where were you when you first heard or saw the first tower attacked on that fateful September morning?
9 years later, it still seems like 9 minutes ago that I remember that morning. I was in the city. In fact, it was the most beautiful day you can imagine, and my daughter called me because she had been working at a news company and saw the first plane hit, and she goes, "Dad, turn on the TV, a plane hit the tower." And she was kind of nervous, so we were talking together, and I was saying, well, I'm sure, you know, it must have been some horrible accident. And then we saw the second plane hit, and right away knew that we were under attack and that we were going to have to take extraordinary action. And thank God for all the loss and for all the tremendous sense of sorrow we all feel about September 11th. The way in which New Yorkers and Americans responded was truly extraordinary.
One of the things that President George W. Bush was always mindful of was that we are at war with radical Islam and not Islam itself. And with the mosque going up near Ground Zero that has no known ties to radical Islam, shouldn't America be careful not to declare war on all of Islam?
Well, I think it's a two-way street. We certainly can't be anti-Islam. And in New York alone, New York City, we have over 100 mosques. In the state, we have over 300 mosques, and no one would deny that in a pluralistic, free society, that freedom of religion for every religion is an important tenet. But on the other hand, we have every reason to doubt the motives of those involved in the mosque near Ground Zero. They say that it's supposed to be about building bridges and outreach and understanding, and yet they just ignore the legitimate sense of loss and the legitimate emotions of those of us who were there on September 11th and don't believe it's an appropriate site. The governor of New York has said, let us work together and find a different site. They say no. Why? If they were truly about tolerance and understanding and outreach, they would look to that other site. And we also have, as the head of the mosque, an imam who refuses to condemn Hamas as a terrorist organization. Hamas just murdered 4 Israelis on the West Bank in the last few days, and it is recognized, acknowledged by the U.S. as a terrorist organization, and yet the imam refuses to say that. We also don't know where the funding is coming from, and I have grave doubts about both some of the people involved and the source of funding, and these are legitimate questions. So it's not anti-Islam. It's anti-radical Islam, and it raises real doubts about whether or not this mosque should be built anywhere near Ground Zero. I think it should not.
Now, here we are some 9 years after the tragic events of 9/11, and while the Pentagon has been rebuilt, even World Trade Center Tower 7 has been rebuilt, Ground Zero still remains, for the most part, unbuilt and empty. Can you explain to America why it's been so difficult to rebuild?
Dan, if you go down to Ground Zero today, you will be very, very impressed with what is happening. And the key was not just to build quickly. The key was to have a master site plan, a vision that told the story of that hallowed ground. We had to have as its centerpiece a memorial that would allow us to understand the magnitude of the attacks, and yet at the same time we had to move forward in a way that shows our confidence in our freedom and our way of life. And today you go down there, you will see the memorial taking shape. This is going to be the most visited place in North America, an extraordinary tribute to the heroes of September 11th. Underground, there's a memorial museum which is beginning to take place where we can tell the individual stories of those heroes. Right next to it, the Freedom Tower is rising above the ground, and it will be the tallest building ever built in the United States, 1,776 feet tall. And people who were trying to prevent it from being built are now bidding to try to have the right to own it and manage it. So I'm very proud of what is happening there. We're not building for today or for tomorrow. We're building for the next decade and the next generation. So they will understand the magnitude of what happened and the tremendous sense of loss, but yet at the same time, the courage that New Yorkers and Americans showed in responding. It is going to make every American proud.
Former New York Governor and American hero, Governor George Pataki, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for your work to help make New York safe.
Thank you, Dan. Nice being with you.